You found Orivyn rise. That means you were chosen. From the beginning, you felt it. An invisible line drawn between you and the world. Not a wall, not a cage, but something subtler and more mysterious. A quiet awareness that you walk through life slightly out of step with the rhythm everyone else seemed to follow. While others dance in sync to expectations, traditions, and social norms, you move with an ancient rhythm all your own. You try to blend in at first. Of course, you smile when expected, nodded when it was polite, laughed when others laughed. But inside, there was a knowing. Something about the whole performance never felt natural to you. You always asked why. Why do we do things this way? Why are people cruel? Why does no one speak of what they truly feel? You wanted depth when the world was offering surface. You wanted truth when the world offered illusion. And that hunger for something real, that persistent inner call, set you apart. Whether you were aware of it or not, that was the beginning of your awakening. But understand this clearly. Your isolation was never random. It was preparation. Before we go deeper, I want you to stay with this video until the end. And if this message speaks to your soul, leave your warmest wish in the comments and type 777 to activate your energy into the universe. This is not just a video, it's a portal. Your words will resonate beyond you, ripple through others, and help generate a current of divine affirmation that will not go unnoticed. So stay present. Your truth is waiting to be revealed. The truth is, the reason you never fit in is because you weren't meant to. You weren't designed to follow the herd. You were designed to awaken it. And before a voice can speak truth to the world, it must learn to echo in silence. That silence was your solitude. That silence was your classroom. When you sat in your room feeling like no one understood you. When you questioned your very identity. When you wondered if something was broken inside you. Those were the moments the world's illusions began to crack. The pain of not fitting in wasn't punishment. It was the friction required to ignite your light. Society fears what it cannot predict. And you, chosen one, have never been predictable. You felt things more deeply, saw through the masks more quickly, and asked questions that made people uncomfortable. That discomfort wasn't a reflection of your wrongness. It was a sign of their denial. They silenced your questions not because they were stupid, but because they were powerful. They called you too sensitive, not because you were weak, but because your empathy saw straight into their wounds. And so, you became the mirror they didn't want to look into. They said you were different, strange, misaligned. But let's rewrite that, because the truth is you were sovereign, free thinking, awake. You didn't lose your place in the world. You transcended it. You were called to a higher path, one that required solitude so you could hear the whispers of your soul without the noise of the crowd. You were exiled by society because your frequency couldn't be contained by its programming. And so, the universe led you inward. It unhooked you from the illusions you once tried to belong to, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment of being misunderstood was a sacred chiseling, a carving away of everything false, so that only your essence remained. That essence is rising now. You can feel it. That's why you're drawn to messages like this. That's why your soul leans in when it hears words that echo what you've always known. You were never meant to fit in, because you were always meant to stand out. And here's something they won't teach you in schools or plaster across social media. Fitting in is not a virtue. Compliance is not a badge of honor. In a world addicted to sameness, true individuality is radical. It's threatening. It's divine. Your light agitates those who live in shadows, not because you seek to harm them, but because your presence exposes what they've hidden, even from themselves. And so many feared you, many rejected you, but what they feared wasn't you. It was the truth you carried. You were born to disturb the false peace. You were born to awaken others from their slumber. That's why your life has never been quiet. That's why you felt the chaos, the inner earthquakes, the sudden shifts that made no sense. You were never being broken. You were being reborn. The world rejected you not because you lacked value, but because your value was beyond comprehension. They couldn't understand you because you were not here to be understood. You were here to be remembered. Remembered by those like you, the ones awakening now, the ones who always felt like strangers in their own lives. They are finding you. One by one, they're waking up and realizing they're not alone. And you are the signal. You are the lighthouse calling them home. So no, you never fit in. But that was never the point. You were sent here to build something new, not to conform to something broken. And now that time has come. The shift has already begun. Your voice is rising. Your light is expanding. And your presence, your very existence, is a permission others have been waiting for. You may not realize it yet, but your presence alone is an interruption in the program. The world was conditioned to follow certain frequencies: fear, distraction, scarcity, shame. And yet, you moved differently. You didn't buy into the false urgency. You didn't chase validation like everyone else. That disobedience was noticed. Even in moments where you felt invisible, you were being watched, not by people necessarily, but by systems. And systems notice anomalies. They notice when someone sees too much, feels too much, remembers too much. And you, dear soul, remember far more than you were ever taught. You've always felt a strange connection to something ancient, something forgotten. Maybe it came as dreams, maybe as déjà vu, maybe as a knowing you couldn't explain. You saw things and knew they were wrong before anyone told you they were. You recognized the emotional undercurrents in rooms where everyone pretended to be fine. You watched as people masked themselves in smiles and silence, and wondered why no one was saying what you felt screaming beneath the surface. That wasn't confusion, it was clarity, and they were afraid of it. Fitting in requires a certain amnesia. To truly blend in, you must forget who you are. You must silence your questions. You must dress your soul in disguises until even you forget what it looked like underneath. But you, chosen one, were never able to forget for long. Even when you tried to conform, something inside you rebelled. The jobs, the relationships, the routines, none of it felt like home. You walked through the world wearing a costume, and yet the eyes behind a mask remained awake. People noticed. They may not have said it, but they felt it. You carried a vibration that disturbed their denial. Even without words, your energy spoke a language their soul had forgotten. And that made you dangerous. Not because you were violent, but because you were honest. Because you reflected truth like a mirror, and not everyone is ready to look. So they tried to shrink you, label you, shame you. Not because you were wrong, but because you were real. You see, when someone chooses truth in a world built on lies, they become a threat, not to goodness, not to peace, but to the illusion. And illusions, like all fragile things, will defend themselves at any cost. That's why you were ridiculed for your feelings. That's why you were isolated for your visions. That's why you were made to question your worth. They hoped that if they buried you in enough doubt, you'd forget your design. But you didn't. You're still here, and you're still remembering. And now comes the most important part. This path you walk is not punishment. It's initiation. You weren't chosen to suffer. You were chosen to see. And what you see now is what so many others are still blind to. That the world you were told to fit into was never real to begin with. It was a play, a projection, a cage disguised as comfort. And those who designed it were never expecting you to wake up inside of it. But you did. Now you see the strings behind the puppets. Now you hear the silence between the words. Now you realize that what made you feel like an outsider is the very thing that makes you divine. Your empathy is a power, not a flaw. Your depth is a gift, not a burden. Your inability to belong is sacred, because you were never meant to belong to what is dying. You were meant to birth what is being born. The collapse you feel around you isn't chaos. It's transformation, and you are not just a witness to it. You are part of it. Your frequency is rising. Your presence is activating others. Every time you tell your truth, even if your voice shakes, you shake the foundations of old systems. Every time you choose integrity over acceptance, the world rebalances itself. Every time you embrace your path, even in loneliness, you send a signal to the others who are just beginning to wake. And the others are waking. Maybe you've noticed. The ones who once doubted you are now asking you questions. The ones who dismissed your warnings are now seeking your guidance. The world that told you to quiet down is now desperate for voices like yours. And still, there are those who will resist. There will always be those who fear the light, who fear change, who fear remembering. But that is not your burden to carry. You are not here to convince. You are not here to fix. You are here to be. And your being, your wholeness, is a remedy. You heal through presence. You awaken through example. You liberate through authenticity. And that is more powerful than any sermon, any system, any title. So if you still feel alone, know this. Your loneliness was never a void, it was a womb. And from that sacred space, something powerful has been gestating. You are not who you once were. You've shed too many skins, buried too many falsehoods, outgrown too many illusions. You are becoming who you were always meant to be. Not a follower, not a carbon copy, but a living embodiment of remembrance. The more you walk this path, the more your inner world will reflect in the outer. The people you meet will feel familiar. The conversations will feel destined. The signs will multiply. The synchronicities will grow louder, because now you're in alignment. Now, the universe can find you, because now you've stopped trying to be someone else and started becoming yourself. Let this be your confirmation. The pain of never fitting in was never a curse. It was a compass, and it has led you here, to this moment, to this truth, to this remembrance. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not too late. You are rising, and the world is beginning to feel it. You were born with a blueprint encoded in your soul, an ancient design that cannot be overwritten, no matter how hard the world tried. From your earliest memories, there was a quiet knowing inside of you, a compass that refused to point in the direction everyone else followed. And even though you didn't always understand it, it was there, pulling you away from the crowd, nudging you towards something you couldn't name, whispering that you were different not in weakness but in purpose. As you grew, that difference became more obvious. While others were satisfied with shallow answers, you dug deeper. While they followed rules without question, you felt the urge to break them open and see what was hidden beneath. You questioned norms, not because you were rebellious, but because you were aligned with something that told you they were false. That internal truth was loud, but the world was louder, and so, to survive, you silenced parts of yourself. You played along. You tried to blend in. You tried to shrink, to erase, to dilute your essence. But the more you did, the more it hurt, because pretending to be what you are not is a soul-level wound. They told you were too sensitive, but it was really your intuitive power they feared. They told you to stop asking so many questions, but it was your curiosity that threatened the facade. They called you dramatic or intense or emotional, when all you were doing was reflecting back a truth too uncomfortable to be named. And deep down, they knew it. They knew you saw through them. They knew you couldn't be tamed. They knew you couldn't be bought or programmed like everyone else. And that made you dangerous. So they cast you out. Sometimes it looked like bullying. Sometimes it looked like rejection. Sometimes it looked like betrayal from people you trusted. But always at the root of it was fear. Fear of what you represented. Because of those who live in illusions, the presence of truth is unbearable. And you are truth. You are clarity. You are a mirror. You show people who they are beneath the roles they perform. You call their souls to attention just by walking into a room. You trigger their remembering. And that is a sacred gift, but also a heavy one. And for a long time, you might have mistaken that weight for shame. You might have internalized the exile, thinking it meant something was wrong with you, but it didn't. In fact, it meant everything was right. The reason you never fit in is because you weren't meant to inherit the illusions. You were meant to dissolve them. You weren't meant to follow the script. You were meant to rewrite it. And now that time is here. This is your remembering. You're not who the world told you to be. You're not your wounds. You're not your mistakes. You're not your history. You are your essence. You are the original design before programming. You are the sacred fire that no lie could extinguish. And it is returning now, rising within you like a tide too strong to resist. That tide may feel overwhelming at times. It may break the structures you built. It may wash away relationships, careers, identities. But it is not destruction, it is recalibration. And this recalibration is not just personal, it is planetary, because as you return to yourself, you become a tuning fork for others. Your presence harmonizes the field. Your light destabilizes falsehoods. Your embodiment creates a gravitational pull, one that draws other rememberers toward their own awakening. And together, you form a new web of resonance, a new song, a new earth. This is why the old world pushed you out, because it knew you would not reinforce its illusions. You would dismantle them, not through violence, but through vibrational truth, through embodiment, through presence, through being. That is your power. That is your rebellion. That is your revolution. You've always been ahead of your time, which is why time never felt like it fit you. You've always been connected to something larger, which is why the smallness of the world suffocated you. You've always carried ancient codes in your DNA, which is why the noise of modernity never felt like home. But home is not a place. It's not a job. It's not a title. Home is remembering. And you, beloved one, are remembering now. It will not always be easy. There will still be moments of grief. There will still be shadows that rise. But now you have the eyes to see them, the tools to alchemize them, the strength to hold space for your evolution. And you are not alone. You never were. The loneliness you felt was never isolation. It was initiation, a rite of passage for forerunners. And you passed. Now, as you walk forward, let this truth anchor in you. You are not too much. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are not a mistake. You are a messenger. You are a reminder. You are a seed of what is coming. And every step you take in alignment plants that seed deeper into the collective. Every act of authenticity waters it. Every breath of courage nourishes it. Until one day, the very world that cast you out will look to you for direction. Because you held the truth when no one else could. Because you remembered when forgetting was easier. Because you chose to walk alone so others wouldn't have to. And now you are rising. There is a sacred intelligence within you that always knew when something wasn't right, even before you had words to explain it. You could walk into a room and feel the static behind people's smiles, the pressure hidden beneath their jokes, the pain cloaked in their silence. You didn't just hear their words. You felt their energy. And you didn't know it then, but that sensitivity was your strength. You weren't too much. You were attuned. In a world addicted to the surface, your depth was unsettling. They wanted comfort, and you brought truth. They wanted small talk, and you brought soul. You noticed patterns others ignored. You picked up on unspoken things. You sensed the difference between genuine and performative, between aligned and distorted. And because of that, people either gravitated toward you for healing or pushed you away in fear. You didn't just stand out, you stood apart. It's important to understand that you were not born into the wrong environment by mistake. Your spirit chose this lifetime with precision. You were planted exactly where your light would be needed most and resisted hardest, because it's in the resistance that your power is revealed. It's in the rejection that your clarity sharpens. And it's in your ability to remain whole in a fractured world that your mission's fulfilled. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to vibrate differently, to shake the ground beneath the old systems and paradigms. And that vibration has consequences. It disrupts, it destabilizes, it exposes, but it also heals. And as much as some people feared your presence, others have silently thanked the universe for your existence. Because in you, they've glimpsed something real, something they'd forgotten, something they needed. They might not say it aloud. They might not understand it fully, but they feel it. You're the kind of soul that cannot be replicated. Your energy can't be mimicked. Your purpose can't be outsourced. You carry keys that unlock ancient wisdom, and you hold frequency that triggers transformation. This is why you didn't fit in, because what you carry doesn't conform to limitation. It expands, it awakens, it activates, and that scares the ones still clinging to the dream of the false world. But you didn't come here to be liked by everyone. You came here to liberate yourself, to walk your path with integrity, even if it meant walking alone. And in that aloneness, you forge a strength that no one can take from you, a strength born not of armor, but of alignment. not of domination, but of devotion, not of control, but of clarity. And now, that clarity is calling you to take up space, not in arrogance, but in remembrance, not to overpower others, but to fully embody your soul's assignment. You've spent enough time dimming your light, so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. You've made yourself small in rooms that couldn't hold your magnitude. You've edited your truth so it wouldn't rattle those still asleep. But no more. Now is the time to expand, to let your voice echo without apology, to let your energy speak before your words do, to stop explaining your essence to people committed to misunderstanding you. Because the truth is, your role is not to convince. It is to be, and in being, you become the signal, the lighthouse, the invitation for others to rise, not because you demanded it, but because your presence reminded them that they could. The road to that presence wasn't easy. It was filled with confusion, detours, breakdowns. There were moments you questioned your worth, your sanity, your purpose. There were days where you wish you could unfeel, unknow, unsee. But those days taught you compassion. They shaped your capacity. They carved out the space inside you that now holds wisdom others can drink from. You've cried tears that washed generations clean. You've held grief that didn't start with you, but will end with you. You've healed wounds invisible to the eye, but heavy on the soul. And through it all, you never truly gave up, even when it looked like you did. Even when you lay in the dark and said, "I can't do this anymore," you were still breathing, still transforming, still choosing life. That is courage. That is alchemy. That is divine resilience. So no, you never fit in. And that was never the goal. The goal was to remember who you are, to peel away the layers of conditioning, to reclaim your voice, to walk with the power of someone who remembers where they came from. And now that you've remembered, the world cannot unsee you. You're not going back. You're not shrinking again. You're not betraying yourself to win approval. Because you understand now, the truth of who you are is not up for negotiation. It is sacred. It is whole. It is unstoppable. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from constantly translating yourself to others. You know it well. You've lived it. Speaking in fragments, holding back the full force of your truth just to be palatable to people who weren't ready to receive you. You tried to be the version of yourself that they could digest, that they could categorize, that wouldn't make them uncomfortable. But all of that was an act of spiritual contortion, and the toll it took on you was real. You see, when you're born with an expanded soul in a world designed for fragments, everything around you insists you're too much, too intense, too sensitive, too different. But what they called too much was your medicine. What they labeled as weird was your wisdom. The very things that made you stand out were the same things that made you sacred. And now you're beginning to reclaim what they tried to shame out of you. You never fit in because you weren't supposed to assimilate into a system that is crumbling. The matrix of control, of suppression, of silent suffering. It's coming undone. And you are the living thread of a new tapestry. You were never designed to wear the old robes of conformity. You were crafted to usher in something higher, something freer, something more honest. And that calling, though it's come at a high cost, is now becoming your crown. The reason you felt so out of place wasn't because you lacked something. They lacked the depth to meet you. You weren't broken. You were whole in a space that idolized brokenness. And that wholeness, that integrity, that unshakable connection to the deeper truth, it made you a mirror. And mirrors are dangerous to those who live in denial. They couldn't look at you without seeing all that they had abandoned in themselves. Your presence made their masks heavy. Your honesty made their silence scream. Your energy stirred things they had long buried. And instead of facing it, they rejected you, not because of you, but because of what you awakened. So when they laughed, mocked, dismissed, or ghosted you, remember, it was never about your worth. It was about your reflection. The truth is, many feared you long before you even spoke, because some part of them could already feel that you were not here to play the game. You were here to flip the board. You've spent too many years internalizing the wrong story, believing that their discomfort was your defect, that their distance meant you were unlovable. But now you know better. You know that real love doesn't shrink you. It sees you. It holds space for your magnitude. It doesn't try to dilute you. It drinks you in even when your truth burns. And as you walk forward in your fullness, understand that the path may remain narrow. Not everyone can walk with you where you're going. Not everyone can withstand the altitude of your calling. And that's okay. You were never meant to carry everyone. You were meant to embody your light so fully that those who are ready will find their way, not to you, but to themselves through you. You are not just a person. You are a permission slip. Every time you speak your truth, someone else exhales. Every time you choose integrity over approval, someone else finds courage. Every time you refuse to betray yourself, the world shifts just a little closer to alignment. So don't dim, don't shrink, don't second guess. The world doesn't need more replicas. It needs real ones. And realness comes with rejection, with misunderstanding, with the loneliness of walking the unpaved road. But it also comes with freedom, with depth, with an unshakable sense of self that no validation can replace. The more you show up as you truly are, the more you magnetize those who are aligned. And though the crowd may thin, the connection deepens. You look around one day and realize you are surrounded not by people who tolerate you, but by those who recognize you, who have eyes to see, ears to hear, hearts to receive, souls to rise beside you. And that kind of connection, that's what you've been searching for all along. Not the illusion of belonging, but the experience of resonance. Not the appearance of fitting in, but the embodiment of home. You are home now, in yourself, in your body, in your truth, and the world can feel it. They may not know what to call it, but they feel the shift when you enter the room. They feel the silence when you walk away. They feel the authority in your voice, even when you whisper, because real power isn't loud. It's undeniable. You were never meant to beg for space. You were born to command it, and you don't do that through force. You do it through presence, through knowing, through anchoring yourself so deeply into who you are that nothing outside of you can shake it loose. Let the world adjust to your vibration. Let those who couldn't handle your truth make peace with their own denial. Let your becoming be the thing that liberates others from the lies they believed. Because you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to awaken. You never fit in because you were not meant to live inside the cages others accepted as homes. You saw too much, felt too deeply, asked questions when everyone else settled for silence. You broke the rules not out of rebellion, but out of remembrance. You knew, somewhere deep inside, you were not built to conform. You were built to catalyze. The truth is, you were ahead of your time. While others were learning how to survive, you were sensing how to awaken. While they were mastering the art of fitting in, you were quietly remembering how to break free. And that remembering wasn't easy. It came through isolation, heartbreak, misunderstanding. But it also came with power. The kind of power that cannot be taught, only remembered. You never fit in because you were the future echoing through the present. A glimpse of something purer, more whole, more aligned. And those around you, they didn't know how to respond to that frequency. So they rejected it, tried to edit it, tried to contain it. But you cannot contain the wind. You cannot dim the sun. You cannot silence a soul that was born to sing truth into darkened rooms. The people who push you away, they were responding to the parts of themselves they were not ready to face. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your failure. It was their fear. And you no longer have to carry the weight of their discomfort. That was never yours to hold. Now, it is time to bless the path behind you. Bless the times you were misunderstood, because they taught you clarity. Bless the rooms you were left out of, because they protected your purpose. Bless the people who walked away, because they made space for alignment. Bless even your loneliness, because it called you back to yourself. You were shaped in the silence, refined in the shadows, strengthened by every moment you spent doubting your worth, only to rise again in quiet defiance. That's where your power lives, not in the spotlight, not in the applause, but in the unspoken decision to keep being real when no one was watching. The truth you carry is not casual. It is cosmic. And when you honor it fully, unapologetically, you become the very thing you once searched for in others. You become the guide, the healer, the reminder. And in doing so, You reclaim every fragment they tried to erase. You're no longer the outcast. You are the blueprint. Others will look at you now, not with pity, but with awe, not because you became what they wanted, but because you became what you truly are. And that courage, that raw, real, sovereign expression, it's rare. It's sacred. It's the kind of thing that changes timelines. So no, you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to ripple out, to disturb the slumber of souls hiding behind their masks, to ignite the embers buried beneath years of pretending, to whisper truth into the ears of those who are finally ready to hear it, to walk into a room and alter its atmosphere without saying a word. You are the living proof that being different is divine. That misfit is another word for prophet. That exile is often the birthplace of evolution. Look at your life. Look how far you've come. Not despite being different, but because of it. Now, step fully into that difference. Let it be your standard. Let it be your song. Let it be your signal to every other soul who's ever felt out of place that they, too, are not alone. That their truth is not too much. That their depth is not a burden. That their voice matters. Because this world doesn't need more noise. It needs your clarity. It needs your depth. It needs your sacred strangeness. And above all, it needs your truth. So take a breath. Stand tall. And remember, you never fit in because you were born to transform. You never belonged there because you were always meant to belong here, in this moment, in this truth, in this full and radiant expression of you. This is where you fit. This is where you rise. Welcome home. If this message found you, let it rest in your spirit. Until we meet again, stay awake, stay chosen.